There's something about the right question. It slips past her defenses. It stirs memory, emotion, desire. Not because it's clever, but because it touches the truth she tries to hide, even from herself. Most men talk to women to be liked. The Stoic man speaks to be remembered. And if you know what to ask, not just what to say, you don't chase her attention. You live rent-free in her mind. In this video, I'm giving you 10 questions, not pickup lines, not tricks. These are psychological triggers that will wake something deep in her. They're sharp, they're dangerous, and they only work if you've got the presence to sit in the silence that follows. Because when a man dares to ask a woman something she's never answered out loud, she won't forget him, even if she tries. Let's begin. Question number 1. What kind of man is hard for you to forget, even if he was not good for you? Let me tell you something that most men never realize. The men women remember the longest aren't the ones who were safe. They're the ones who left a mark, even if that mark came with a little chaos. Now, when you ask a woman this question, what kind of man is hard for you to forget, even if he was not good for you? You're doing two things at once. First, you're inviting her to expose the emotional fingerprint of a man who bypassed logic and hit her on a primal level. Second, you're positioning yourself subtly as someone who can access that same level of impact. This isn't just a curiosity question. This is a psychological provocation. Because here's what happens. She has to go back. Back to the man who disrupted her. Back to the one who made her feel even when she didn't want to. Back to the moment where desire overtook reason. And what you'll notice if you're calm, silent, and grounded enough to listen is her tone will change. Her voice will soften. Her gaze might drift. She'll speak slower. Why? Because you've brought her out of her surface-level mind and into the body. This question isn't about the answer. It's about the state it puts her in. Now, let's anchor this in Stoic understanding. The Stoic man knows that he cannot control her thoughts, but he can create the conditions for her to meet herself more honestly in his presence. By asking this kind of question, you're not trying to impress her. You're giving her a mirror, and women are irresistibly drawn to men who reflect the deepest parts of them. This is power through stillness. You're not chasing her validation. You're inviting her to reveal where her true vulnerability lives. And here's the kicker. When she answers, she'll be watching you, to see if you flinch, to see if you judge, to see if you try to relate too much, too soon. But if you simply receive it without reaction, without trying to fix, without showing off, you become the exception. You become the man who doesn't need her story to feel strong. You become the man she wants to tell more to, and that's where attraction begins. Now, let me be clear, this isn't a manipulation. You're not asking just to unlock her for the sake of it. You ask because you're the kind of man who can hold the truth, hers, yours, and everything in between without running. That's what she craves, but will never say out loud. A man who can handle her storm without becoming one himself. If you can be that, you don't need to talk louder. You don't need to try harder. She leans in naturally, because silence, when held with strength, is the loudest thing in the room. Now, before we continue, I want to know something from you. Comment below with, I speak with impact. If you're the type of man who doesn't just talk, but leaves something behind in every conversation. And if you thought that question unlocked her, you haven't seen anything yet. The next one will do more than just make her remember you. It might make her question everything she thought she wanted. Let's keep going. Question number 2. What is the most dangerous thing someone has ever awakened in you? This is where you stop being just another guy. You see, when you ask a woman this question, what is the most dangerous thing someone has ever awakened in you? You're not just being curious. You're opening a forbidden door. And here's why that matters. Every woman, no matter how calm, put together, or proper she looks on the outside, has something wild inside her. Something she doesn't show. something even she doesn't always understand. But it's there waiting. And most men, they never touch that space because they never make her feel safe enough or real enough to even admit it exists. But the moment you ask her this question, and you ask it without judgment, without fear, and without rushing, you become the container she didn't know she needed. Now pause a second. Why dangerous? Because what's dangerous isn't always bad. Sometimes it's her ability to lose control. Sometimes it's her longing to be claimed. Sometimes it's her temptation to destroy the good for the thrill of the intense. And sometimes it's love itself, the kind that burns logic and leaves her exposed. This is not a light question. This is an invitation into her shadows. And that's what makes it powerful. Let's root this in Stoic principle. A Stoic man doesn't fear the shadows. He walks into the storm not because he loves chaos, but because his stillness isn't based on what happens around him. So when she shares something raw, maybe it's jealousy, obsession, unfiltered desire, rage, or even an old betrayal she never speaks about, you don't blink. You hold it. You don't try to fix it. You don't minimize it. You simply let her see that you can handle the fire without flinching. That's when her guard drops. That's when she realizes, this man sees me, even the parts I try to hide. Oh, and let me give you the psychological edge here. When she reveals her danger to you, and you don't run, you become the safe space and the spark. You become rare. And rare men don't chase. They attract. Now, a small warning. Don't ask this question like it's a game. Don't weaponize it to get her to spill. Ask it because you genuinely want to know what's under the surface. Ask it like a man who's not afraid to meet the wild in her, because he's already made peace with the wild in himself. And if she hesitates, let her. Don't pressure her. Don't fill the silence. Just hold it. The right silence, at the right moment, says more than any smooth line ever could. This is how you separate yourself from every man who ever played it safe with her. This is how you burn into memory. So now I want to hear from you. Comment below. I hold the fire. Mike K. If you're ready to be the kind of man who doesn't shrink in front of the truth, but stands there and lets it unfold. And if that question stirred something in you, just wait. Because the next one, it doesn't just touch her emotions. It rewires the way she sees you and herself. Let's keep going. Question number 3. What signals does your body give when someone starts to attract you, but you don't want it to show? This question hits where logic fades and instinct takes over. When you ask a woman this, you're not just poking curiosity, you're unlocking a door she usually keeps shut tight, even from herself. Because attraction, real attraction, doesn't always announce itself with words. It leaks through the cracks, through her posture, her breath, the slight twitch of her fingers, her eyes flinching away just a beat too slow. Here's the truth. The female body reacts before the mind permits it. Even when she doesn't want to want you, her body might already be confessing. But what makes this question powerful isn't just that it reveals signs to look for. It's that it pushes her into self-awareness. It forces her to think about moments when she was caught off guard, when desire crept up in a moment of unexpected eye contact, or during a simple brush of the hand. A Stoic man doesn't chase these signals. He observes them calmly, silently. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions than your own soul." This applies here. You're not asking this question to manipulate. You're asking it to sharpen your perception, to see her not just as a puzzle to solve, but as someone unfolding under your presence. Let's break this down. If she answers with things like, "I blink more," or "My breathing changes," she's revealing her vulnerability without saying the word. She's confessing that her body gets nervous, not in fear, but in anticipation. If she says she crosses her arms or looks away when she's attracted, it's a mask. Her body leans in, but her mind resists. Why? Maybe she's been hurt. Maybe she's testing if you'll rush in like the others, or if you'll hold your frame. One real-life example. A woman once told me she starts fixing her hair constantly when she's into someone but doesn't want it to be obvious. Sounds simple, right? But to her, it's a shield, a way to redirect that nervous energy. And that's where a Stoic man separates himself from the average guy. He notices. He doesn't comment on it. He lets it sit in the space between them, confident that she knows he knows. This is subtle power. When she's aware that you've picked up on these involuntary cues without calling them out, she feels seen in a way that's rare. Not exposed, not embarrassed, just seen. And here's the kicker. The more composed you are in that moment, the more magnetic you become. Because what most men don't realize is this. Attraction is about control, but not the kind you think. It's not about controlling her, it's about controlling yourself. Can you sense her signals and still remain still? Can you feel her shifting closer emotionally or physically and not flinch into action? This question also flips the mirror. If you're watching closely, you'll start noticing your own reactions too. Do you lean in when she leans out? Do you start rambling when she holds silence? This is where Stoic awareness is critical. When you become the calm center of emotional gravity, her body, without conscious permission, starts sinking to yours. So, what do you do with her answer? You listen, fully. You don't joke, you don't tease, you nod. You hold eye contact just long enough to let her feel the heat of your presence. Then you change the subject. Move on. That's power. You gave her a glimpse of intimacy, and then you walked away from it without trying to claim it. You let her sit with the feeling. Because remember, what's unspoken holds more tension than what's spilled out. And this question, it's the trigger. If used right, it doesn't just drive her crazy, it makes her remember you in quiet, unexpected moments. Late at night, when the room is still, and the last message you sent lingers in her phone, unread but deeply felt. If you've ever caught her body saying one thing while her words said another, drop a comment that says, "I trust what I see." And if you're wondering what happens when you ask her about the danger she hides behind her smile, well, you'll want to stay right here. Question number 4. What is your most secret weakness, the one only someone truly special could discover? This isn't a casual question. It's not surface-level flirting. It's not small talk. It's a direct challenge to her mask. Because every woman, no matter how strong, how guarded, how composed, has a part of herself she protects like a fortress. Not because she's manipulative, but because the world has trained her to guard her softness. And when you ask her this, without flinching, without sarcasm, you're signaling something rare, that you're not afraid of her depth. You're not here to chase what she shows. You're here to feel what she hides. Most men ask what she likes in a guy, what she does on weekends. But when you ask her about her most secret weakness, you cut through the noise. You bypass the polished social persona. And suddenly, she's not just speaking, she's revealing. So what kind of answers does this question evoke? Sometimes it's emotional. I sabotage things when I feel too vulnerable. Learn. Sometimes it's physical. My body gives away everything, even when I try to stay cold. Sometimes it's spiritual. I crave connection, but fear it'll consume me. Whatever her answer is, don't rush it. Sit in the silence. Let her feel your presence, not your pressure. See, in Stoicism, Epictetus reminds us that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. And this is where that wisdom comes alive. She's not looking for you to fix her. She's testing whether you can hold her, emotionally, energetically, without judgment. Because a woman's deepest weakness is rarely something she talks about. It's something she feels. And when you show her that her weakness doesn't scare you, doesn't change how you look at her, that's when she starts to trust you differently. This question also gives you insight into how she wants to be loved. Not the surface-level love, the curated version she shows the world, but the kind that reaches her when the mask falls, when the lights are low, when no one's watching. And here's something most men miss. When a woman reveals her weakness, she's not looking for pity. She's looking for power, shared power. She wants to know if you'll use what she shows you to connect or to control. That's why how you respond to her answer is more important than the answer itself. You don't make it about you. You don't jump in with your own story. You don't make light of it. You acknowledge it, calmly, stoically. Maybe you say something simple like, "Thanks for trusting me with that." And then you move on. That's strength. That's polarity. That's how you make her feel emotionally naked without ever crossing a physical line. Now let's go deeper. Her secret weakness might not even be about her. Sometimes it's about what she gives to the wrong people, the loyalty she can't help but offer, the hope she still holds even after betrayal, the way she stays silent when she should speak up just to keep the peace. These are the fractures in her armor, and if you're the first man who sees them not to exploit, but to understand, she will never forget that feeling. Because in a world of noise, Stoic masculinity offers stillness, not the stillness of indifference, but the stillness of grounded attention. That's what drives her crazy, not your charm, not your jokes, not even your looks, but your ability to witness her softness without reacting. Let me make this clear. If she opens up, even slightly, treat it like sacred ground. Do not try to dig deeper unless she leads the way. This isn't about conquest, it's about presence. So next time the moment feels right, not forced, not scripted, drop the question, calmly, confidently, and then just watch her. Watch her eyes, search yours for safety. Watch her body language shift. Watch her ask herself silently, "Can I really show this part of me?" And when she does, even if it's just a glimpse, you've already separated yourself from every other man who tried to earn her body before earning her trust. If you've ever seen past her walls without forcing the door, comment, "I make her feel safe." And if you think that's powerful, wait until we ask her what her body gives away before her words do. That's next. Stay here. Question number 5. What does a man do that makes you feel in danger, yet you still want him more? This question, it's not innocent, it's dangerous, and she knows it. You're not just asking about attraction, you're touching something primal. The edge, the line between fear and fascination, the magnetic chaos that most women feel but rarely talk about. And when you ask her this, calmly, grounded, without a smile, you're not just asking about men, you're asking about herself, about her desire, her wiring, her psychology. Most guys are too busy trying to be the safe guy, the nice guy, the predictable option. But here's the truth, and it might rattle some of you. There's a kind of man who makes her pulse race because he doesn't bend. He's calm, yes, but not soft. Kind, but not passive. Unapologetic in his energy, unbothered by her tests, and absolutely willing to walk away if he isn't respected. That energy? It doesn't feel safe in the way society tells her she should want, but it feels real. It wakes her up, and that's what drives her crazy. So when you ask her this question, you're opening the door for her to say what she usually buries. She might say, "When a man holds eye contact like he already knows me, when he doesn't flinch when I pull back, when he doesn't ask for permission to lead, he just leads." It's not the danger of violence, it's the danger of losing control, of being emotionally seen, of being deeply wanted without being asked for anything in return. Now here's where Stoicism comes in. Because a Stoic man doesn't chase danger, he masters his presence. He knows his silence, his restraint, his gaze. These are tools, not weapons. He doesn't manipulate, he magnetizes. And that subtle tension, that grounded intensity, that's what women crave but struggle to explain. Let me give you a real-world example. Picture this. A woman's out with her friends. She locks eyes with a man across the room. He holds the gaze just a moment longer than expected, Not creepy, not aggressive, just steady. He doesn't smile. He doesn't approach right away. He lets the moment burn. She's not in control of the moment, and that's what pulls her in. That's the kind of moment that feels dangerous, not because she's unsafe, but because something inside her is waking up. And now she's wondering, who is he when no one's watching? What else is he not saying? Why do I want him more, the less he gives? This is the exact psychological tension your question is tapping into. You're not asking, what do you want? You're asking, what unders you? And when she answers, even if it's just a glimpse, she's handing you the blueprint. Not for how to manipulate her, but for how to understand the polarity. Because masculine energy, when held with discipline, creates gravity. That's what makes her feel in danger in the best way. The way that bypasses logic and speaks directly to the nervous system. And let me be very clear, this energy doesn't come from aggression, it comes from alignment. A man who knows who he is, what he wants, and isn't afraid of female energy even when it's chaotic. He doesn't try to calm her storms. He lets them crash against his shoreline. That's what she remembers. That's what she returns to. Not the guy who wrote her poetry. Not the guy who texted her 10 times. But the man who looked into her and never blinked. So the next time you ask her, what makes you feel in danger but pulls you in, pay close attention. Because she's not just describing some past lover. She might be describing the man she wishes you would become. If you're ready to be that storm-proof man, comment, I hold the tension, end of. And in the next question, we're going to flip the mirror and ask her about the signs her body gives away, even when her mouth stays silent. You don't want to miss that. Question number 6. What is the craziest thing you would do if no one ever knew it was you? Now this is not just a question. This is a key, because every woman walks the world in a mask. She has to. A world of eyes, of judgment, of roles she's expected to play sweet, polite, restrained, good, even when her mind is screaming with curiosity, chaos, and craving. So when you ask her this question calmly, directly, without flinching, you're not asking for gossip. You're asking her, what's under your skin when nobody's watching? It's not about what she'd do in a movie. It's about what she'd do when she's completely free from labels, from fear, from consequence. And you'll see it. Her eyes will shift. Her breath might slow. Her guard will start to slide because she knows this isn't small talk. This is a man asking, who are you behind the curtain? That's why the phrasing matters. You're not asking, what's your biggest fantasy? That's surface level, predictable. She's heard that before. You're asking, what would you do if no one ever knew? That's raw. That's dangerous. That frees her. It invites her to consider what she's never said out loud, not even to her closest friends. Because most women bury that wildness. They know it can't come out with just anyone. But when a man offers her that space, that psychological permission, the answers might surprise both of you. Maybe she'd say, I'd seduce someone in complete silence. No words, just eye contact. No. I'd go somewhere, nobody knows me, and become someone else for a night. I'd break a rule I swore I'd never break just to feel something real again. Now, here's what separates boys from men when you ask this. You don't react. You don't flinch. You don't joke nervously. You just hold the space. Because when she reveals that side of herself, the part that wants to break free, she's watching your face. She's watching to see if you can handle her shadow. If you can, she'll trust you more than any man who ever just told her she was pretty. And this is where Stoicism becomes magnetic. You are not aroused by chaos. You are centered in it. You don't shame her desire. You honor it. Without turning it into a performance. Without rushing in to make it about you. You let her feel safe being dangerous. And that is a high most women rarely get. It's also the moment she starts to crave you, not because of what you say, but because of what you can hold. Let me give you a real scenario. You're talking late one night. maybe over voice message, maybe in person. The lights are low, the vibe is quiet. You drop this question. She pauses, laughs nervously. Then she looks away or down. Right there, don't say a word. Let her go into her own mind. Let the silence stretch. You've already created the container. Now you let her step into it, at her own pace. And when she does, you don't rush to add a story of your own. You just say, or maybe, that says something deep, and you leave it there. You make her feel seen, not exposed, because you're not trying to get anything from her. You're giving her the rare experience of being unmasked without being judged. Now here's where the Stoic frame flips this into something powerful for you. A man who knows his own dark side, who doesn't hide from his own cravings, impulses, shadows, can sit with hers without losing center. He doesn't need her to be pure. He needs her to be real. And when she senses that in you, that's the moment she stops seeing you as just another guy. She starts seeing you as the only man who makes her feel safe enough to be the version of herself she's never shown, the version she hides from the world. That's not manipulation, that's presence, and that's rare. So if you're ready to ask this question and mean it calm, clear, steady, then she'll feel it, not in her ears, in her body. Now, if that kind of power resonates with you, I want you to comment right now. I hold her truth. And stay with me, because in the next question, we're about to uncover what makes her feel most in danger and most alive. Question number 7. How do you behave when you start falling for someone but you don't want to admit it? Let's get real for a second. Falling for someone when you don't want to admit it is a war between two minds. And women know this battlefield better than you think. When you ask her this question, you're not just poking at curiosity, you're unlocking a door she usually keeps locked even from herself. Because when a woman starts to fall, but doesn't want to admit it, maybe because she's been burned, maybe because she's scared of losing control, her actions become layered. She hides the softness, but her body still whispers it. And if you know how to listen, you'll see the signs behind her resistance. She might tease more, playfully push away, say things like, "You wish I liked you," or "Don't get a big head." That's not rejection. That's containment, trying to manage the heat she's feeling underneath. She'll pretend to forget little things you tell her, but then reference them later. She'll act casual when you call, but you can hear the smile in her voice. And the most telling one? She gives you more of her time in subtle, non-committal ways. Late-night texts, memes, random voice notes, all under the radar, all unspoken intimacy. When you ask her this question directly, how do you act when you're falling but don't want to admit it? You're forcing her to stop hiding from herself. And here's the beautiful part. She'll laugh almost every time because you've caught her. That laugh isn't just amusement, it's recognition. She sees that you see her. And not in the way most men do, not through compliments or flattery, but through awareness, attunement, calm observation. That's what makes Stoic presence so rare. You don't rush to fill silence. You don't try to decode her with logic. You just hold the tension. You ask her a question most guys are too nervous to ask, and then you watch. Watch how her body shifts, how her tone changes. Because even if her words dodge the answer, her body won't lie. Why is this question so powerful? Because every woman has felt that struggle between her desire and her defense. And most guys only see one or the other. You're seeing both and honoring them. Now let's break it down psychologically. When someone starts falling and won't admit it, they protect themselves with preemptive detachment. They don't want to look too eager. They don't want to give power away. So they micromanage the signals. They say things like, "We're just having fun," even while they're checking your last seen status on WhatsApp at 2 a.m. They flirt with others in front of you, not to hurt you, but to test your emotional equilibrium. So when she answers this question, if she does, listen carefully, because what she says might sound casual, but it's actually her blueprint. She might say, "Oh, I get distant," or sarcastic. Translation: she's fighting herself, and the closer she feels, the more she tries to hide it, because that closeness makes her vulnerable. And when you, as a man, can make a woman feel seen even in her deflection, she will open, slowly, beautifully, dangerously. But here's your responsibility. Don't rush it. Don't say, "Aha, so you're into me." That kills the energy. You stay still. You let her sit in the tension she's just confessed. And when the silence stretches, you nod, maybe smile, say nothing. That silence becomes the spark. Now, if you're the kind of man who doesn't just chase surface reactions but wants to understand the language beneath the words, then you'll feel the shift when this moment lands. And if that's you, comment this below right now. I read between lines. Because in the next part, we're going even deeper into the space where the woman in front of you wants to be claimed, but will never say it out loud. Keep watching. Question number 8. What left the biggest mark on you from a man, even if he's no longer in your life? This isn't a surface-level question. This is a quiet excavation. You're not asking about the man, you're asking about the impact, the echo, the scar, or the softness that stayed long after the door closed. And when you ask it calmly, without judgment, without rushing, you do something most men don't. You invite her to speak about the part of her that still remembers, even if she's tried to forget. Now, why does this question hit different? Because every woman has one. One man who, for better or worse, left a fingerprint on her emotional DNA. And no matter how strong or stoic she seems today, there's always a chapter she hasn't reread in a long time. You just handed her the book. And here's where it gets interesting. She might not talk about heartbreak. She might talk about obsession, or shame, or something wildly intimate that seems small, like the way he looked at her after a fight, or how he made her laugh when she didn't want to. It's not always the grand gestures that stay. It's the tiny emotional needles. And when you ask about that mark, not to compare yourself, not to judge, but to understand her internal world, you step into sacred territory. Because most guys avoid that question. They're scared to hear about the other man. They think it makes them look weak to ask. But in reality, it shows unshakable confidence. You're saying, "I'm not threatened by your past. I want to understand how it shaped the woman in front of me." Now, let's get deeper. What kind of marks do men leave? Some leave bruises, others leave hunger, and a few, the rare ones, leave a kind of gravity. Like the woman is still orbiting the memory, even if she's moved on. When she tells you about him, watch how her energy changes. Does her voice soften? Does her body tense? Does she say, "I don't know why I stayed with him that long"? That's code for, "He accessed something primal I couldn't explain." Now, here's your power. You don't flinch. You let her go there. You ask follow-ups with curiosity, not control. What did he do that left that mark? Was it how he made her feel protected, or how he left her spinning? Was it something he gave, or something he withheld? Because when she answers, she's not just telling you about him. She's telling you about what moves her. And that's exactly the knowledge you need, not to manipulate, but to meet her where she's emotionally wired. Stoic presence means you're not reacting, you're revealing. You're leading her into herself without needing to be the hero of her story. You're showing her that a man can witness her past without trying to erase it, that you're not here to compete with ghosts, you're here to understand what they whispered. And when a woman realizes that, she relaxes, she opens, she drops the mask. Because you're not chasing her body, you're reading her imprint. And the truth is, once you understand the kind of impact a man left on her before, you understand exactly how to either recreate that imprint or rewrite it with something deeper, more present, more real. Now, if you're watching this and you're not afraid to ask questions that make a woman stop, feel, and maybe even confess more than she planned to, then comment below, "I leave marks," because we're not done yet. There's still one more layer, the question that reveals not her history, but her fantasy. And once she says it out loud, there's no going back. Stay tuned. Question number 9. Has it ever happened that someone attracts you and you don't understand why? This question walks a fine line, and that's exactly what makes it powerful. You're not asking her to explain who she's attracted to. You're asking her to decode a mystery that even she doesn't fully understand. And when a woman hears this question, what you trigger isn't logic, it's emotion, memory, sensation. Because yes, it's happened more than once to every woman. She meets someone, maybe in a quiet room or a crowded place, and something about him hits different. Not the way he looks, not the job he has. It's the vibe, a presence that cuts through the noise. And what's wild? Sometimes the guy doesn't make sense on paper. He's not her type. He doesn't check the boxes, but he pulls her attention like gravity. Now, when you ask this, what you're really doing is this. You're inviting her to describe the unseen, and that's magnetic. She'll start thinking out loud. Yeah, I don't know what it was about him. He wasn't the best looking guy, but I couldn't stop thinking about him. He didn't even flirt that much, but his energy was just calm, controlled. And now you've unlocked a deeper level of conversation. Because every woman has been pulled toward a man she couldn't rationalize, and that experience lingers in her memory because it defied her usual rules. In Stoic terms, this is the power of presence, of stillness, of being unaffected. You don't have to be loud to be attractive. You don't have to be flashy. You just have to be unshaken. And when you are, you move differently. You become the man who doesn't have to understand attraction to create it. And here's what this does to her mind. It triggers curiosity. Why was I drawn to him? What was he holding back? Why did he seem like he didn't need anyone to validate him? Because what most women are actually drawn to in those I don't know why moments is the man who isn't chasing, the man who's anchored in himself, who doesn't over-explain, who isn't trying to impress. Now here's where the game changes. If you ask this question and she tells you a story about one of those men, and you're calm, not threatened, not reactive, she starts to associate you with that kind of presence. Why? Because you're giving her the exact space that man gave her. The space to feel, not just talk. You're letting her drop the social mask, get curious about her own attraction, and explore her own inner polarity, all while you just listen. That's seduction without touching. That's leadership without control. And that, my friend, is how a man becomes unforgettable without saying a single pickup line. So, if you're the type of man who's okay being a mystery, the kind who doesn't chase validation but creates emotion, comment below. I pull without trying. Oh, because the final question in this series isn't about mystery, it's about desire. And when you ask it, she either leans in or walks away forever. Let's see which one she chooses. Question number 10. If someone could understand you without you having to explain anything, what place would they have in your life? This is not just a question, it's an emotional shortcut. It bypasses surface-level flirtation, skips over small talk, and goes straight to the core of every woman's quiet craving, to be seen without having to perform. And the moment you ask this, her brain doesn't just process words, it searches for feeling. She pauses, because the question forces her to imagine a man who doesn't just listen but understands. A man who doesn't need her to unpack every emotion or justify every reaction. A man who looks at her, really looks, and sees the hidden tension behind her smile, who catches the subtle shift in her tone when something's wrong, who doesn't rush to fix her, but stays with her, calm, grounded, attentive. And that imagined man, he becomes impossible to ignore. Here's the psychological weight of this question. Most people, men and women alike, feel like they have to explain themselves all the time. At work, with friends, in relationships. So the moment someone comes along who gives them the gift of intuitive understanding, it feels almost spiritual. It feels like safety, but not the dull, predictable kind. It's the safety that makes space for depth, for desire, for surrender. And if you ask this question from a place of stillness, not strategy, her answer will reveal everything. She might say, "That person would mean everything," or "I've never had that, but I think I'd finally stop pretending." And in that moment, without needing to charm her, you've just become the man who could understand her without her having to explain. This is where masculine stoicism meets emotional intelligence. You're not reacting. You're not filling the space with validation or jokes or performance. You're just holding the container, unshaken, present. Because a man who asks a question like this and then doesn't flinch at the answer, that man is dangerous in the best way. He's rare. He's irresistible. He's the one who doesn't need to say, "I get you," because she already feels it. And that feeling, it stays. So if you've made it this far, you already know attraction isn't just about looks or status or lines. It's about emotional perception, the ability to see what others miss, to ask what others avoid. You ask the right question, you unlock the part of her no one else has touched. And with this final question, you don't just drive her crazy. You make her remember you, long after the conversation ends. And there you have it. 10 questions, each one crafted not to impress her, but to uncover her, to bypass the surface and stir something deeper. These aren't tricks, they're truths, quiet tools of masculine awareness, used not to manipulate, but to connect, to challenge, to awaken. If you've watched this far, it means you're not like most men. You don't chase noise, you move with intention. And that's exactly what separates the unforgettable from the forgotten. So if you want to keep sharpening your edge, if you're ready for more than surface level advice, hit subscribe. And if you want to go even deeper, join the Stoic Brotherhood. It's where men like you train the mindset, the restraint, and the clarity it takes to move through life and relationships on your terms. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.